Do you want to improve your function? Meaning, do you want to feel like you can move throughout your day in the ways that you want to move without issues, without things coming up? A lot of times, this idea of functional exercise or functional training gets proposed as the solution to this problem. But the thing about functional training is it leaves a lot of things to be desired. And so what can you do if functional training actually isn't making you more functional? Well, on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, it is exactly what we're going to be answering for you. We're going to cue our introduction and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today, actually, before we dive into this conversation, I do want to ask, hey, if you enjoy the conversations that we have every single week on this podcast, we have an ask for you, and that is to go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. Not only will it help more people find our work, find this podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and looking for information on health, but the other thing is it will allow us to get really, really high quality guests on this show, which we are so excited to bring to you. So if you enjoy the show every single week, all we ask is if you could take a couple minutes of your time to go to Apple Podcasts, leave us that 5-star rating and review. It would help us a ton. It would mean the world to us as well. So today we are exploring this idea of functional training. Okay, functional training, functional exercise. I guess in some worlds, it's still really popular. I feel like it was kind of at its peak of popularity in the kind of late 2000s, 2010, 2011, 2012, something like that. But I'm sure there are a lot of places where it still is really popular, mostly because I kind of keep myself in a little bit of a bubble from a going to other gyms perspective. But the idea is still out there of like, hey, if you want to become more functional in your life, you need to be doing functional exercise. You need to be doing functional training. The fact of the matter is it's actually not true. And doing the functional exercise, functional training may actually be making you worse, may actually be making you less functional. So we want to explore that with you today, explain why that is, and what we believe you should be doing instead.
Well, Charlie, I think the hottest thing about functional training is the name. It is a very catchy name, and many people don't want to exercise because they think it's all about building strength and they just want to build function, right? Like a lot of people in their life look at their life and be like, dang, I wish I was better at doing golfing. I wish I was better at picking up my groceries or my grandkids or whatever. And so we feel there's like a lack of function there, and then the functional training comes in and we continue on, right? And so I think that is a lot of the appeal of it. Plus, if you look at functional training, a lot of times in our brain, we think, oh yeah, well that will definitely help me. Right? Remember, I don't want to get stronger. I just want to get more functional. But what we fail to realize is that the more that we focus on strength, the more that the function will come by itself, and it will come easier than had you done functional training.
Right.
And so when we think about functional training, Charlie and I are referring to this idea of exercises that kind of look like the thing you're going to do, right? And we call that mimicry, but that's basically what it is. So like, for example, if you are trying to do functional training for golf, you do a whole bunch of exercises that are not golf, but look a lot like golf. Or if you're trying to do more functional training for, your hand grip strength while carrying groceries, you're going to do a whole bunch of not grocery carrying, but things that look like or mimic grocery carrying, right? And so there is a time and a place for this kind of stuff, but it's not the always. It's not like the only one thing you should do. And so if you're not familiar with the idea of functional training, that's what we're talking about. Charlie and I call it like mimicry exercise. And it's always going to really resemble the thing that you're trying to get better at. And in our brains, of course, we're like, oh, that looks amazing. I'm going to do more of that. And we also see functional training actually applied a lot like in the therapy world, where it's like, it hurts when I twist my wrist. So then you go to do exercises and you do a whole bunch of more wrist twisting. So again, it's not the thing you're trying to do, but it's an exercise that looks a lot like the thing that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another aspect of functional training is like adding in a lot of unstable surfaces or adding in a lot of wobble. So, okay, we're going to do this on a ball instead of a chair because it's going to make it more functional. Or we're going to do this on one leg instead of two because we're going to make it more functional. We're going to do this on, a wobble board or, an Eric's pad or something like that because it's going to make it more functional. Like those are the ideas that are thrown out. And essentially what they're saying is, well, you're going to have to use a lot more areas of your body while you're doing this. And because in your daily life, you're never using just like one area of your body at a time. This is, again, going back to the mimicry idea. This is going to mimic more what you might be, doing throughout your daily life. But there are a lot of problems and there are a lot of shortcomings with that. Some we're going to get into today. Some we are not going to get into today because a little bit outside the scope of our conversation. So for the sake of brevity, we're just going to focus in on kind of the big things that we want to talk with you about today. But the big problem that we see with functional training is that it is often, as we've been saying, geared towards what we're going to call like this skill acquisition, meaning like, okay, you have your golf swing on the golf course. Okay, now let's do the golf swing, with a band tied to your golf club. So you're essentially doing the skill that you would be trying to do. And you're like, okay, cool. And and then fingers crossed along the way, we're actually going to get stronger. So it's like very skill heavy. And then, hopefully along the way, we actually get stronger with it as well.
I think something to bring up that's really important is that in getting better at functional training, like let's say you do a whole bunch of functional training or you're thinking about it, and getting your body to function better are two different things. So as Charlie said, a lot of functional training is geared towards skills, right? I'm getting better at this skill, which is important, but it's not the big picture. I guess it's not like the biggest picture here. And so what we want to propose is that the most functional thing you can do with your exercise, meaning exercise that directly translates into you being able to own your body more, do more things with your body, swing your golf club better, get on your knees to garden, all those things that we think are the results of functional training are actually results. What we're looking to bias your exercise so that those results will come from getting your body to function better as a body. And so we have to actually think, okay, so how would I work out so that my muscles get better at being muscles, all muscles everywhere. My joints get better and more functional at being that joint, the shoulder, the hip, the spine, the knees, the ankles, all your joints. And so then overall, now my body is more functional because it's more prepared, and I almost said it's more better at being how the human body should function. And so when we think about functional training, we're thinking about, hey, let's get every joint to be better and stronger and more mobile and better at being that joint. Same with the muscles.
Absolutely. And so just to kind of like paint a picture a little bit, essentially what a lot of the functional world is saying is like more or less you need to develop your skills of doing something essentially like in a vacuum of that environment with which you're doing it. Okay. Again, to get better at doing, the golf swing, you need to do the golf swing. And then we're just going to load doing the golf swing with a band or a weight or something like that. And that's going to then translate into a better golf swing. And what we're saying is actually there's a lot of carryover for what you do as far as getting stronger, getting your muscles functioning better, having a better, awareness of your body. And then you can apply that to your skills training. So functional training essentially like, hey, working out and living in a vacuum. We're saying, no, there's carryover from what you're doing with your exercise that then gets spread out through your entire life. I remember when I was 13 years old, my dad and I went on a really, really long bike trip. And over the course of preparing for this bike trip, my legs got a lot stronger. My endurance got a lot better. And I remember when we got back from that bike trip, is now all of a sudden I went to play baseball and I could hit the ball so much farther than I could before that bike trip because my legs had gotten stronger. It's not because I was swinging a heavy bat or because I was practicing practicing the skill of, being, of swinging a baseball bat or anything like that. But because I had expanded my capacity as far as my strength was concerned, now all of a sudden I could get a better outcome that I was wanting when I swung the baseball bat. And so that's what we're looking at here, is like not necessarily focused on the skill acquisition, but rather focused on your capacity. How strong can your muscles be? How well can your joints move? How aware are you of your body? Because the fact of the matter is, your output, the end result that you're wanting with your skill will always in some way be limited by your capacity. Okay? If you get yourself stronger, you will have a greater output. All right. And so the output that you're wanting from your skill is limited by your capacity for strength. If you are able to move better, you will have a greater output. So the output that you're wanting from your skill is limited by the capacity of your motion. If you are more aware of your body and understand like how your body is positioned, how you're able to control your body, you will get a better outcome from your skill. And so the outcome from your skill is somewhat limited by the capacity that you have for your awareness. All right. That's the argument that we're making. And that's how we go about kind of teaching people to go about improving their function without doing the traditional like functional training.
Absolutely, Charlie. And, this is reminding me of when one of my clients, she started a few years back, but she is an avid golfer, like loves golf. Golfs all the time. Here in Chicagoland, we can only golf just a couple of months out of the year, but during those months, and then during the off months, she's working with her coach. She's, all these things. And then she's like, okay, well, I think I just should strength train because, everyone says I should strength train. So she started strength training, and she could not believe how much it improved her golf swing. Like, she did not come work out with me being like, Julie, we're improving my golf swing. Because in her head and in everyone she had talked to, the way you get better at golfing is to hire a golf coach, which is technically a golf skills coach. Okay, so it's like a skill function training for golf. But what is left out, which Charlie was referring to, is that what about improving the function and capacity, like your strength capacity in your muscles? So we did absolutely nothing that looked like golf, but we worked on improving her shoulder strength and function, elbow strength and function, wrist strength and function. And by the way, when you're strengthening and functioning, your awareness of those areas. I am a terrible golfer, but the only thing I know about golf is that you have to get your body in very particular positions. And if you can't even tell where your body is, it's going to be very difficult to orchestrate that big swing. Anyway, so we worked on all the joints of her body, spine, her hips, and she was blown away by how much it improved her golf swing. Because again, in her head and all the information that she had been presented with was like, the way you get better at golf is to learn the skill of golf versus, hey, golf, gardening, any other activity, pickleball, tennis, any activity that uses your body, you can get good at that skill. But the more that you get your body stronger and have a larger capacity for strength, the more you're going to be able to utilize that skill. And so that's kind of what Charlie was referring to, is like, hey, you can get so good at whatever skill and know all the intricacies, but the more your body is prepared to handle that skill or be able to perform that skill, that's going to be really built and dependent on your strength training that you do in the gym or at your house.
So what are the different kind of capacities that we want to build? Okay, what are the different aspects of our body that we want to build the capacity of? I guess would be a better way of saying that. So one is your range of motion. Okay, and a lot of times when we think about range of motion, the idea is, well, we want to increase to more range of motion than what we currently have. And sometimes it even goes as far as like increase to more than what your body is currently like capable of or able to do. And what we're saying is actually we want you to have increased the capacity of your range of motion through increasing the ownership of what you are currently able to do, increasing the control that you have of what you are currently able to do. So for example, being able to, like lift your arm straight up overhead, if one arm doesn't go all the way up and the idea is like, I need this arm to go all the way up. We're saying, actually first and foremost, we want to make sure that everything that you do have everything that all the motion that you do have, everything that you have, you are able to control that range of motion. You have ownership over that range of motion before we go trying to expand and get your body to have more range of motion. And what's really cool is when we do it in that order of increasing the control and increasing the ownership of the range of motion that you currently have, oftentimes your body actually gives you more range of motion. So you end up with more range of motion than what you currently have.
Yeah, Charlie, I love that you ended it with that, because I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to say. Because we often, I want to actually jump back to a story. One of my clients, he was going through some shoulder tightness. I guess we could call it a little bit of frozen shoulder happening. And so anyways, he was doing these exercises that he found on YouTube about how to like crawl your hand up the wall and then like slowly walk. And over time, he was like, Julie, look how much motion I can do. And that's kind of where we started. And I said, that is really great. You can do that. But what's more important is if you can control that. Because if you have motion that you can't control, that's actually called injury. That is where your joints and muscles get injured. And so although having motion is great to have, it's more important to have strong motion. So strengthening the motion that you do have, because that will lead your body to be able to create more motion over time. And sometimes very quickly over time, like in one set. So anyways, the more that you focus on improving your range of motion by strengthening the motion that you do have, not forced motion, but motion that you do have, the more motion you will have overall, and the more motion your body will give you. Like, you know, when you wake up and you feel super tight, and then those other days where you wake up and you feel pretty free, you're not feeling super tight, the more times you're going to feel that relaxed, like not feeling super tight feeling, because your body owns all those positions and it's not going to tighten up in response of having lack of strength in those positions.
Absolutely. Now, the second aspect that we want to focus on from an increasing capacity standpoint is increasing the capacity of your mind-muscle connection. In other words, like, how aware are you of the different areas of your body? How easily can you access like your shoulder muscles, your chest muscles, the muscles of your core, the muscles of your legs? Or if you were to try to move or do an exercise, would you just be more or less just kind of like flinging your body using whatever your body can come up with in order to do that exercise? Or would you be able to say, no, I want to be able to use these muscles. I can feel those muscles squeezing. I know that I can control those muscles. I can access those muscles. And then because of that, I feel like I'm very aware of not only how my body is positioned, how my body is moving, but also like what my body has available. So this is a really important aspect that often gets overlooked, because mostly when people are thinking about working out, they're thinking about, maybe increasing their flexibility, increasing their strength, increasing their overall fitness. But this idea of improving the capacity of your mind-muscle connection, improving the capacity of the awareness, actually will not only pay dividends down the road, but will help to make all the other aspects of what we're trying to build the capacity of that much more solidified.
I think building the mind-muscle connection capacity is probably the least valued in the quote-unquote traditional gym sense, because if you think about like going to the gym, people are like, count the reps, listen to the music, listen to your instructor, turn off your brain, push through the pain. And mind-muscle connection is kind of saying like the opposite, like, hey, focus on your muscles, squeeze, make sure you're being respectful of your body. It's like tuning into your body rather than tuning out. We're not trying to work out, we're trying to work into our body. But we don't really realize how this directly relates to you being able to do the stuff you want to do in your life, because it is probably the most potent one. The more aware you are of your body, the more that your body is able to connect with itself, the more you're going to be able to attain more skills. Like if you are training for golf or pickleball or bending down to garden or picking up your grandkids or traveling or all the things that we want to do with our body, the more that we are connected and are able to connect with our body, the more that we're going to be able to accomplish and master new skills or develop current skills that we do have. And so this is probably the most functional of them all, which is connecting and tuning into your body when you're doing your weight training and strengthening exercises.
And then the third aspect of the thing that we want to build the capacity of is your strength. Okay, so like how much output can your muscles generate? How much force, how much tension can they generate? And then being able to do that through as much of your range of motion as you can and be very being very aware of your body. So you're essentially, like, the end result is you are able to move your body in a whole bunch of ways, in a whole bunch of different directions. Make sure that you can have that mind muscle connection to whatever areas of your body that you're wanting to, in whatever position that you are in. You're able to generate strength from and be able to either create a movement or maintain a position or whatever it is. So either like move or stabilize or whatever you're needing to do. But building the strength is kind of the third component of this whole series.
And yes, this is the third of our list. And you know what? I think a lot of people, when they think about exercise, they think about it in one of two categories. Number one, I'm going to be in the category that's like use full range of motion and connect. And then the other side is like just build strength, right? And so I think that we think they're on like two different teams, but they're actually all on the same team. And when we exercise, it's important to be focusing on all of them. Because if you just do step 1 and 2, you're like, focus on my range of motion, mind muscle connection, you're probably going to always exercise in a way that's very, very light. And then you're not really getting those function changes that you're seeking. You're going to get some, but then there's like a top cap or a top limit, I guess I would like to say. And then the other part is like the strength part. And like some people think strength is everything, meaning you go to the gym and the one thing you're going to try to do is put more weights because it's all about strength. Well, there are parameters to adding strength, right? Like keeping full range of motion and connecting with your muscles. We have a couple other principles that we add in our workouts and in our membership. But when you're thinking about really gaining function, it's the blend of the two. How am I going to build strength? But knowing that I need to build strength with parameters to keep me safe, to keep the function high, and to get and yield the best results, so that it is translating into your life. Because I know a lot of our audience, we have some people that love working out, and we have some people that are like, hey, I work out only because the results of what it allows me to do in my life. Both are amazing reasons to work out, but this will fill both of those categories.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of times when it comes again to like function and functional training, it's very skill heavy. Okay. And the problem with being very skill heavy from a workout perspective is it's more or less kind of teaching your body new ways to compensate. It's not necessarily expanding the capacity of any aspect of your body from a strength, motion, or, awareness connection standpoint, but it's rather saying, okay, how can we compensate to kind of get the outcome that we're wanting, despite, the state that our body's in. And so it'd be like trying to build a bigger and bigger building on a very unstable foundation. Now, that metaphor, and that doesn't end well. So the solution that we are proposing is instead to increase your function by first increasing your capacity. Increase the capacity of your range of motion, increase the capacity of your mind muscle connection, and increase the capacity of your strength. And once you do those three things, because now you have expanded your capacity, now the outcome of your skills will be that much better. But if you're still feeling like your skills are lacking, then you can start to, increase or focus on improving your skills on top of that. But now you have a higher capacity to work with, again, for motion, for awareness, and for strength. And this is exactly what we teach you to do in the Full Motion, Full Strength, Full Function program within the Exercise for Life membership. We teach you how to go about, exploring your range of motion and figuring out like where your body can move, and how much it can move, and then starting to do exercise to help expand the capacity of that, not only from the amount of motion, but also, again, that ownership, that control aspect, making that mind-muscle connection, really zeroing in on connecting, on squeezing your muscles, and then building the strength on top of that. So this is a 3-step approach that we use in the Full Motion, Full Strength, Full Function program. Again, that's exclusively within the Exercise for Life membership, but it really puts a practical application to everything that we discussed today. So if you'd like to join us in this Full Motion, Full Strength, Full Function program, all you have to do is go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/membership. Not only will you be able to get access to this program, you'll be able to get access to programs with hundreds of other workouts that you're able to do from home in under 25 minutes using minimal equipment that are all designed to improve your strength, improve your function, improve your fitness, regardless if you have joint pain, if you have muscle pain, if you have any kind of tightness tightness going on, anything like that. As long as you've been cleared by your physician for regular exercise, these workouts will help you build your health, build your strength, build your function, regardless of what else is going on with your system. So again, that's www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/membership. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is wanting to feel like their function of their body is improving, that they're becoming a more functional human, and they're just doing the traditional functional type workouts, but they're not really getting all the results that they're wanting? Share this episode with them so they can understand why improving their capacity for their range of motion, for their mind muscle connection, and for their strength may be the limiting factor and ultimately the thing that allows them to get the results that they're wanting from their more traditional functional workouts. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.